All right, everybody, welcome into the Growler. Paul Jr. here with you. Happy holiday week to you. Special fun show coming your way today. Myself, Charlie Goldsmith, Jeremy Rauch from Fox 19 are going to be here, and we are going to draft our list of the most interesting Bengals of the 2025 season. That could be anybody. Could be a player, could be a coach, could be a staff member, could be a mascot. I don't care. Where does Houday end up in the rankings? I don't know. But the bottom line, fun show. We're going to kind of discuss the 25 team. Who's most interesting to us? Looking forward to getting into all of that with them in a minute. No Houday Light this week. Just a reminder on that. Happy 4th of July. Hope everybody celebrates, has a great time, and is safe with your family and friends over the holiday. Look forward to that. Next week, Jay and I will be back. We'll be reacting to the State of the Franchise survey. That's up now on The Athletic. Go check it out. Fill it out, please. And it's one of my favorite things every year to compare how your opinion of people in the organization, of things that have happened, changes over time, and how you feel about everything that's gone down. And Lord knows, plenty has gone down lately with the Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll get into that. Also, reminder, BetMGM, you need to download that BetMGM app. If you want to get our BetMGM bonus code, use Growler when you do it, and you can get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Download the app, sign up using the bonus code Growler in all caps. Okay, you're with me here. Deposit at least $10, place your first wager on any game, and you will receive that same amount up to $1,500 in a bonus bet. If your bet loses, just make sure you use the bonus code Growler when you sign up. That's BetMGM, bonus code Growler. Get your $1,500 first bet offer today. All right, wanted to get all of that set up so that we can get to the good stuff with Jeremy and with Charlie. Let's get that music. Let's get this show going.
Ready for some Bengals news? At the Growler, we got you. Hot takes, interviews from your host, Paul Jr.
All right, now we can officially start the best part of this episode, and that is welcoming in my esteemed guests, both part of the flagship crew over at Fox 19. Of course, the best TV sports crew in the city, which you know that. I've been telling you that for a decade now. Jeremy Rauch has joined us. Jeremy, what's up, buddy?
Man, I'm honored. This is so cool. I'm glad you brought in the flagship. I'm thankful that Charlie Goldsmith is now a part of the flagship TV station as well. So it's cool to get together and have a little collab here.
Yeah, it's Charlie's crew a little bit. We're all connected in the web. Charlie,
Yes.
How you doing?
Jeremy, my birthday is the same as Trey Hendrickson's, December 5th. I would love one of those hats. I would love one of those nice, crisp Fox 19 Now hats that you're wearing. Gray backdrop, got the white big letters. Very nice.
Your birthday is and Trey, apparently, your birthday is 5 days before my son's, which I think is also Joe Burrow's, December the 10th. I want to say.
Right in that area, yep.
Say it's right in there. So maybe for your birthday and my son's and Trey's and Joe Burrow's, I can get you this hat.
That'd be a sick party. Me, you.
I think you should distribute that hat to all of the parties just mentioned. I think everybody should get one of those. All right, let's get down to business. I like drafts. I like the idea of using this as a way to stake your claim. And we're in the storytelling business, you know. We're all from different angles, all in different ways. But we're in the storytelling business. What's interesting? And I thought, interesting. I'm just going to go straight out of the dictionary as an adjective: engaging or exciting and holding the attention or curiosity. So keep that in mind as you do your picks and you decide who in the Bengals sphere, literally anyone in the Bengals sphere, except for, I guess, maybe let's take the media off the table. We're all very interesting people, but we're not holding enough attention. In the Bengals sphere of 2025, who is the most interesting? Jeremy, I'll let you, as a guest to the Growler, kick off the draft and give me your number one overall draft pick amongst most interesting Bengal in 2025.
You must have known something. You said let him kick off the draft. Evan McPherson,
Wow.
number
Number one
one. Yes.
Wow.
I was so worried that you guys were going to steal this from me. I am coming out hot, kicking
Not
and
on my
screaming. Hey, that's fine. That's fine. Hey,
I
I'm
mean, he
coming
was
out.
far down my board. This is like the surprise over the Demetrius Knight Jr. pick. It's like, yeah, I mean, I see it in round 3 or 4, but
Yeah.
round 2,
Yeah.
round
So-
1.
So
overall?
I was so concerned about someone else taking it. I'm going number one with Money Mac.
Wow.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing and why I'm so interested in Money Mac. The narrative with Evan McPherson has shifted within the fan base quite a bit in the last year or so. Now, we know what he did for this team in year 1. We obviously understand his rise to stardom and what he meant for that team that made the Super Bowl. And since then, there have been a lot more questions. Doesn't mean he's not been a guy that's not somewhat reliable as a kicker for this team. But last year, he had the injury. And last year was supposed to be, in a lot of ways, a bounce back year. And I would say, and I'm guessing you guys would agree, that the Bengals would have won at least 2 games if he could have made field goals. One of them being the overtime loss to the Ravens. He would have had the game-winning field. They lose that game. The other one being the 2 fourth-quarter misses, late fourth-quarter misses against the Chargers, and a loss that felt like it sealed the Bengals' fate last season. If they win those 2 games, they finish with 11 wins. Now, there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts last season. I get it. But to me, they need Money Mac to be Money Mac again. And I am most interested in that as my number one pick.
Wow. Charlie, do you have any thoughts?
I look forward to all of your thoughts about the long snapping competition in August. Whenever they're working on field goals, I'll sidle right up to you. Jeremy, what are you seeing? Who's he more comfortable with? How's the rapport? How's the off-field chemistry between Will Wagner, Cal Adamitis, and Evan McPherson? All ties together.
It does all tie together because the operation is as much a part of that. I'm not going to say it was blamed, but it was dropped in as part of the equation in what was happening with Money Mac last year. My question with Evan McPherson is, how far into the season is he allowed to miss kicks until the leash is being pulled on him? And now, look, Cade York would like to say, proceed with caution on that one. But, you got to start thinking, are they going to let another season unfold with events like the ones that you just detailed from last year? How far does that go? What is the patience level with Evan McPherson? I find that very interesting. It had him sneaking onto my board, but I am still stunned with that as the number 1 overall pick. Charlie,
Yes.
You have the number 2 overall pick. Who is most interesting in the 2025 Bengals for you?
So I'm not going to pick Joe Burrow because that's a silly pick. I'm going to pick sideline Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's sideline demeanor. Joe Burrow's role with the team. Joe Burrow, I'll add in locker room presence, specifically with the defense. I think Burrow's biggest weakness last year was on the field in games, as he should. He's got a game to play, but you saw very much him be an open book from a frustration perspective. How much is that something he's had to reassess? How much is that something, as he's reassessed, he's reconsidered the power maybe he can have on players on the other side of the ball, on young players stepping into bigger roles on the offense? I'll add in Burrow's locker room speeches, which you started to see show up down the stretch of last season as well. I'll throw that into this mix, but some of the defining moments of Burrow's 2024 season were frustration after the Raiders game, talking to Zach. The Titans game was very similarly. And I'll add this in too. Maybe my biggest question about the offense is, can they clean up some of the procedural stuff that led to Burrow being that frustrated? It seemed to be a lot of penalties, substitution stuff, like ironing out all those kinks with another year of experience. That can be a way this offense steps forward. And then you've got a happier Burrow, and maybe that sprinkles out to the entire team.
I like that. I mean, I think not going Burrow some point in round one. I mean, he is inherently the most interesting person on this team. I would add in, this is a guy that now, amongst really the big four quarterbacks, is the only one without an MVP. There is still this undercurrent of divisiveness in the way that he's discussed, I think. And until he makes a run and wins a Super Bowl or wins an MVP straight out, maybe that will continue to be a part of him. But this is the guy that called out ownership at the end of last year.
Yeah.
He wanted to get his way, and he wanted to keep these guys. And they, in many ways, altered their plans because of what he wanted. They've given him what he's wanted. They have worked with him on all of the requests, on all the boxes. They're still working on checking that last one with number 91, but they're mostly there. This is for the first time he said, give me this, and I, under the idea that I'll give you a championship. Well, for a team that's missed the playoffs 2 years in a row now, one via injury and one obviously because of things also outside of his control, they haven't made it. I think that adds the sideline demeanor, the relationship within the building all becomes even more interesting because of how last year ended and what the organization did give to him.
Can I say, you said sideline Joe Burrow. Can I say week one Joe Burrow? I'm interested in that as well. I mean, honestly, I mean, this is a guy who is without a doubt one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, without a doubt a stone cold killer in December and January. And you would like to think in February at some point, obviously. But week one, whether it's coming off injury or other things, he is a slow starter. We've all known this. But he has not done the Bengals any favors. There's a lot of circumstances around week one. I get it, but he's not done them a lot of favors in that first game. And to me, if they're going to start fast, quote unquote, week one Joe Burrow has to look a little more like week 4, week 5, week 6 Joe Burrow at least. He has to come out warmer.
I would agree with that. I think the first, maybe the most interesting thing to draft would be what their record is after the first 2 weeks in terms of if we're right back in that same place again. But I won't go that obscure. I'll maybe take a little bit of a layup here. I'm just going to say Al Golden. I mean, I don't know, man. I keep going back to this same conversation. They gave him the same team. Zach Taylor put his ass on the line betting on Al Golden to be the one to fix this, that increased the temperature on Zach Taylor's seat, which maybe he'll get drafted here later in this draft as well. But I think Al is a bigger part of this. And yet Joseph Osai's back, BJ Hill's back, the same DBs, Logan Wilson, they've dabbled with a few new pieces, but essentially they said, here, we're giving you 9 top 100 picks, all in significant roles that have all struggled or been benched or had questions about them or are rookies. And you need to be able to get more out of them than Lou Anarumo, who we loved around here, by the way, could. And you need to be able to run this professional defense, something that you've not really done before, at a high level to get this team and Joe Burrow and his ticking clock back to the Super Bowl. This is the reason we didn't go last year. All of that on his plate. And it's hard to find reasons to believe it would be different for reasons other than, hey, maybe Al can get more out of them. That is insanely interesting to me, how he goes about trying to do that with all of those 9 guys, how he goes about changing his scheme, how he connects with this team to make it not go the same way. What happens if it starts going sideways again? Everything about Al Golden this year is fascinating to me. So he's my first round pick.
We've spent a lot of time talking about each individual player and they've got to improve at this area. The defense has to improve. I think the one that's gone under discussed the most and the most under discussed thing on Al Golden's plate is helping improve the culture of the defense, which I don't think was nearly as good as it needed to be in 2024 and cost the Bengals significantly, specifically under Lou. And this was partially how the roster was constructed, partially because of what certain guys had earned. There was a big divide between the veterans and the young guys, just in terms of how they were coached, in terms of what their roles on the team were, and how that all played out kind of on a daily basis. The veterans are gone. Obviously, Lou's gone. What is Al Golden's role from a personality perspective with a Cam Taylor-Britt, with a Jordan Battle, with a Fig Newton who has the it factor that you're looking for. Maybe even, with the Miles Murphy. Can he help Miles feel more comfortable and confident with this scheme with fewer guardrails between young guys, old guys, coordinator? I wonder how that impacts the culture of the defense. And of course, that's a massive, maybe the most important thing on Al Golden's plate.
And Al Golden needs to eliminate the question of what exactly are we doing here? I feel like that was, I don't know if that could be the theme of last season until they finally just, started playing better the final 5 games when Lou kind of gave up in some ways on what he wanted. But it's eliminate that question, whether it's in a second one, like right before the ball snapped, or it's a bigger picture question for the season. What exactly are we doing here? This defense needs to know. And that's Al's job, obviously. He's trying to work on that. And the offseason, he's going to work on it all throughout camp. What exactly is the plan? What are they doing? They need to know it and go with it and be about it more than anything, because I feel like if they at least know kind of what they're doing, they will be better than last year. And that's a small bar. But to me, that's the step that Al Golden has to take.
And I think that's something that he has made a career on. And it's why Zach Taylor made the bet on Al Golden. It's why I think there's a lot of optimism and belief on that side, is that this is this guy's entire career reputation in college, Temple, Miami, what he even did here with the linebackers, a young linebacker group, like Notre Dame. All of these things have been him finding ways to help young players play fast, play understanding, and not have you sit there and say, what are they doing? What is anyone doing here? And I think there's reason to believe that he can turn out something that looks a lot more like what was happening the last 5 weeks of the season than anything that we saw in the weeks preceding that. Jeremy, I will circle back around to you. We don't need to do a fantasy snake here. We'll just come right back to you. Where are you going now with your second round pick, most interesting Bengal of the 2025 season?
Okay, so I've got so many options written down here, and it's
stick to your board.
It's the Joe Burrow thing. I wasn't going to go anywhere near that, but I do like where Charlie went with that. So I don't want to catch shade again for my next pick, but I'm just going to say that I think that Dylan Fairchild is way up there for me, up there for me, and like there's so many young guys that I could go with, but he is already working as a starter on the offensive line. We know this, right? But this offensive line had a guard problem. They tried to solve that. They're trying to solve that still going into camp. We understand that. But Dylan Fairchild is supposed to be a big part of that. To me, for the offensive line to be what it's supposed to be this season, Dylan Fairchild needs to be a dude. I'm very interested if he is that dude for the Bengals. And talking with him, the way that he talks, I know you guys have talked to him as well. I'm very impressed with his demeanor, how he carries himself. He's already in love with Scott Peters and the way that Scott Peters, the offensive line coach, has been working with the O-line. But to me, the Bengals are betting on him big time. And so I'm interested to see if he can hold up, if he can be a guy, a dude, a stud on that offensive line to finally help it look like the way it should for this offense, as great as it was last year, to be the offense it can be and should be.
I'm interested.
Go ahead, Paul.
No, go ahead, Charlie. What do you got?
I have an unearthed, or I don't know, I just haven't said this yet, OTA minicamp observation, which is that whenever it was possible, Dan Pitcher was just locked in on the guards the whole time. Dan Pitcher, eyes were always on the guards. That extra attention there, one from obviously a senior member of the coaching staff, to the recognition of the importance, the recognition of that position as uncertainty, and then probably the interest in seeing how the meshing of Scott Peters' new program links up with, the guy who Scott Peters linked hands with. All those adding up creates for such a fascinating storyline that, again, Dan Pitcher wasn't taking his eyes off it, and neither will we this summer at training camp.
No, I mean, if you look at the offense, to me, it's that feeling solidified to any kind of serviceability is the only thing keeping them from potentially having the number one offense in football. Everything else is in place. And they have what you would need for that at every other position, except those two, which can turn it into a house of cards and the whole thing can fall apart. That said, the other thing that makes him interesting is it is wild to expect him to be anything other than below average to maybe average, like rookie, third round pick. I don't care who you are, to come in and immediately early in a season and be good is wildly difficult. And so if he could pull that off, it would be fascinating. But also, how does he handle some of the failure that's inevitably going to come up to him, even if he does win that job? He'll be someone that everyone will certainly have their eyes on in camp. There is no doubt about that. Very interesting. I like that. I like that pick. Charlie, you are up. Round 2 for you.
I'm sorry, Paul. I'm going to take Chase Brown. The element of
I don't know how many more times or places I can say it anyway.
As long as Paul doesn't say Miles Murphy again, we're good.
He's on the list.
Here's my Chase Brown take. The part that no one is talking about with Chase Brown is that at the end of this season, he's going to be eligible for a contract extension. Now, we'll do lots of podcasts on this next summer. We'll relitigate the Joe Mixon debate. Do you pay your running back, whatever and whatnot. You know that quote, like, enjoy the moment while you still got it, like the good old days. Like, this is going to be the good old days. This is the sweet spot where there's none of that long-term worry. He's still this young ascending player who I think is hitting the true prime of his career. I think this year Brown's set up to be as good as he ever will be in the NFL. Not that that can't sustain it. I think it will sustain. But to have him be able to be at the peak of his powers right now, giving Burrow the ability to have a running back at the peak of his powers like Chase Brown will be right now, that will be something that I think I'll spend a lot of time this year trying to say, don't take for granted what you're getting now from Chase Brown, how he fits into the room, how he never complains or asks for the ball. And there's none of the contract stuff hanging over any of this yet either. Like, this is going to be the last year where that's going to be the case for Chase Brown. Oh, and I also think that, like, he's going to become a national name in a way that he's not quite enough yet. So Chase Brown, buy your stock now.
I mean, I said it on our bets episode. He is 100-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. And I'm not saying he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL. He's 100-1. Okay. That is wild. People, I don't think, understand how central of a part he is going to be around this offense. This is a guy who, when the offense evolved last year from week 9 to 17, he was 5th in the NFL in yards from scrimmage. And that is before Dan Pitcher and this staff got their hands on the running game to recalibrate it to be built around his skill set this year. As everyone focuses on how to stop Jamar after his Triple Crown season and the sign in T. Higgins and all of that stuff, the decoy factor of just leaving Chase Brown to tear people up is going to be taken over and over again. And plus, he has this built-in chemistry he developed with Burrow last year in the off-script plays. I love everything about Chase Brown and what he's going to be this season. I just think he's going to be fantastic. You did take it from me. I did say on Horde's podcast last week, he had who's the breakout star. All the writers that came on had to come with who it was or what's your hottest take. My hottest take was that he will end up leading this team in yards from scrimmage this year and do something only 2 other running backs have done since 2020, and that is have 1,000 yards rushing and 500 yards receiving. And so I just see big. I couldn't be more on board with you, Charlie. I guess I said what else can I say? I just said it again. I don't care.
Well, I work in TV, so I just want anyone like if just listening, just visualize this with me. What was it? You guys help me out here, okay? Because it all runs together sometimes for me. Was it the Panthers game where Joe Burrow bought time on the right side of the field, threw back across to the middle of the end zone, and Chase is just waiting there wide open for a touchdown? I think it was the Panthers game, if I remember right, last year. Anyways, that to me, like if you want to visualize, you talked about chemistry with Joe Burrow, Paul, like that's what it is. It's a play that takes what feels like 15 to 20 seconds at least to develop. And there's Chase Brown just sitting in the end zone in the middle of all this chaos, wide open as Joe Burrow finds him. Like the more and more we see that, if you can visualize that play, like that's an elite connection for Joe Burrow and Chase Brown, for all that chaos to be happening, for Joe to keep buying time, and Chase can kind of just sneak downfield and just say, I'm right here for you. That's so huge to his game, and I agree with you, Paul. Good hot take by you, by the way.
Can you imagine if Chase Brown becomes an emphasis and a focus for other defenses, and then he starts opening up the passing game? That's new.
That's the point. I mean, the thing is, the whole thing last year, the second half of the season, he was 5th with yards from scrimmage. That was only at 4.2 yards per carry at that point, which for a dynamic running back like him is low. I mean, he maybe wasn't getting even as much out of the running game as you'd like to think. You certainly know how explosive he can be. We've seen that when he hits the open field. I'm fascinated by what Chase Brown's going to be. All right. I'm not going to do Myles Murphy. I'm not going to take Myles Murphy. I can't do it again and say it. He's on the list. He's technically next on my board, but I'm just not going to do it. Y'all know.
Leaving the board.
Should the Bengals have done the same? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
The book is not out on the Myles Murphy pick.
There's no question. He is interesting to me. He's one of the most interesting guys, but I'm just can't do it. There's a couple of guys here that I just have in my description next to him. I just have, doesn't he have to be Trey Hendrickson, right? Like, I don't want to do this again, but it's interesting. No matter what happens, if he's playing angry, if he's playing with a contract, if he's trying to re-assimilate with his teammates, if he's trying to influence Shamar Stewart, also on the list with it no matter what goes next, is he on the sideline in a hat? Is he not there? Is he in his golf gear holding more sessions with the media? It's just hard not to say that he's not going to be amongst the most interesting figures. I hate how exhausting this topic has been over the course of the offseason, but I do think as we get closer to the season, as it starts to impact wins and losses potentially more, it gets even more interesting and less exhausting probably at that point. Which was the same with Chase last year when it went from exhausting to really interesting to causing them to lose a couple of games.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Charlie. It's interesting. Honestly, and I've said this a couple of other places, I just have a hard time believing that somehow or another Trey doesn't play week 1. Because Trey cares so much about what people think of him, right? Not just his character, but who he is as a player. Now, I understand that he wants to make more money, and that's going to be a huge part of it, and he's tried to stick to his guns on that. I understand the play, but I would be surprised still if somehow or another he is at least not agreeing to something that is maybe more on the Bengals terms. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to play out, but to me, like, I see him week 1 no matter what, because to me, Trey cares too much about that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I had this whole bit prepared for my next pick, where my next pick was going to be Fiona the Hippo, parentheses, and Trey Hendrickson's friends. Because whenever when he talked to us for 20 minutes, I love the zoo. We heard a million times about the zoo and about sharks, and he didn't mention Fiona by name, but that's something he's loyal to in Cincinnati. Sam Hubbard, something he's loyal to in Cincinnati. What draws Trey back in at the end of the day? Called out Zach. The old quote unquote guys are gone on this defense. BJ Hill's probably one. Maybe Logan Wilson. Obviously, he's been through the war with him is another. Who is Trey loyal to? Is it still the zoo? Can the zoo alone? I guess he's already back in Cincinnati.
It's a great zoo.
Can the zoo alone repair his relationship with the Bengals? Can the power of friendship bridge this divide? We'll see. Time will tell.
There's
the
only
power
one
of friendship.
thing. The power of friendship. There's only one thing that can bridge this gap, and it's money.
Yeah.
There's only one thing that ever bridges the gap when you're talking about it. It's money. This has always been about money, and it's about figuring out on both sides where the money needs to be for them to say, all right, we're good here. And it will probably get to that point. Like Jeremy said, I'm with you on that. All right. One more pick for each of us. We'll quickly breeze through here. Some of our sleeper picks here, maybe down our board a little bit. Jeremy, where are you going in round 3?
Can I just say really quick, and I know we're trying to breeze through here, I wrote down like 20 names. There are so many interesting names, positions, coaches, so many unknowns, or at least some knowns, but guys that we wonder if they can get back to, a la CTB, right? Cam Taylor-Britt. But I'm going to pick a guy who I think this is personality, this is football, this is, can he wake up in the morning? I'm going to pick Jermaine Burton, okay? Yep. Because interest is all around Jermaine Burton. Look, you guys probably remember this as well. Kyle Kasky, the former Bengals running backs coach, basically had to stand on the table for them to draft Joe Mixon, right? Like, come on. get Joe Mixon. He came with the character flaws and all that kind of stuff. To me, someone this past offseason had to stand on the table, maybe even slam their chair, you might say, for Jermaine Burton to stick around with all the nonsense going on with him. Zach Taylor, to me, is that guy. He was the guy that's like, now, wait a minute, let's give this guy one more chance. Even though he was burned by Jermaine over and over and over again last season. Jermaine spoke with us for a long time this offseason. He talked about how he's matured, how he's grown. And now we're about to find out whether or not he has. What is his role on this team? Is it a major role? No, it's probably not. I would like to see him as a returner. I think there's a lot of juice there. I would like to see him in that spot if he's a guy the Bengals can rely on. And even as we talk about reliability, you didn't think you're going to be relying on him last year. Then the T. Higgins stuff happens. You just never know when you're going to need a guy like Jermaine Burton. But if and when the Bengals do need him, they need him to be available. And the guy they hope he can be, and the guy that Zach Taylor, I think, stumped for over and over again to stick on this roster. They were excited about him when they drafted him. We all know this. I am interested to see if he can keep it together. And I, for lack of a better term, live a healthy enough lifestyle to be there and be a pro for the Bengals.
My line on Burton is at some point this season, I can't tell you when, Joe Burrow is going to need to drop back and throw a 40-yard pivotal deep ball to Jermaine Burton. I can't tell you when that'll be. It could be week 1. It could be the playoffs. It could be week 7 against whoever they're playing that day. But at some point, they will need that. And Burton has to be making sure that he is always ready for that moment because there's an unpredictability about when that moment's going to come.
I mean, I would say, will he be there? Is the question. When Joe Burrow looks for him, will he be there for any number of reasons that have nothing to do with his speed? And I will that happen? I don't. No one can say. Literally, no one. Not even Jermaine, who can say that for sure about whether he will be there. For his sake, I hope that he is. I hope that he has left the problems that befell him last year behind him. He's got a long way to go to prove that he will definitely be there to create that trust and rebuild that with quarterback, coach, and organization. But yeah, Jermaine also one listed on my list that just says, I mean, ... Obviously. Yeah, he's there. Charlie, last pick for you.
I considered taking this with my first pick. Because it's a bit of a surprise, I'm going to just ask a question. Can you see a scenario where maybe Shamar Stewart has a quieter season? Oh, and also the Ravens win the division because of their passing attack against the Bengals. Could you guys see that happening? Possibly. It's possible.
Yeah.
No predictions.
Sure.
Yeah.
My pick is Ravens safety Malachi Starks.
Wow.
The big draft decision in my mind was Stewart over Starks. How much run did Sam Laporta get here for the Bengals drafting? And again, we're not going to have the Miles Murphy topic, but that's the thing. You, the listener, have been like, oh man, I wish the Bengals took Sam Laporta. I've said on this show before, my biggest concern about the Bengals right now is safety. Geno Stone, 1, is going to be in the spotlight all season. 2 is going to be in the crosshairs of quarterbacks all seasons. 3, frankly, I expect game plans to be, let's make Geno Stone beat us. Now, if he does, great. Good job, Geno. Career year. After taking that pay cut, you're setting yourself up for a heck of a contract in 2026. But ultimately, that stage is going to be Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And, also, by the way, Malachi Starks fixes the flaw in the Ravens secondary that Joe Burrow was picking on last year. He can't pick on our Darius Washington and Marcus Williams anymore, who's still like spacing out as that ball travels in the air to Jamar Chase 70 yards down the field. The Ravens feel like they fixed that by adding Malachi Starks. You can see Starks making a play against the Bengals. Shamar Stewart has a quiet game, and we're going to be having that conversation. Or I'm wrong, and it's like, great job, Bengals. You picked Stewart over Starks, and now you're set up great for the future. But I think that draft decision is going to be so pivotal that Malachi Starks will be one of the most interesting Bengals universe-related players in 2025.
You're always outside the box.
Starks was my guy.
Yeah.
I wanted him. I thought he was
He was a growler guy. I mean, we can go back to that episode where, I mean, we said this was a double all day and this defense needed doubles. And every report out of Baltimore is how great Malachi Starks is playing leader and turning things around on this defense and all of these things. And the reports have not been the same for Shamar Stewart here.
Okay,
okay.
hold on, really quick. You know, like to Charlie's point about safety. You know, like there's a meme or whatever where it's like a husband and wife laying in bed, and like the wife is like wondering, the wife is like, "Man, wonder what's going through his head right now." And like the Bengals husband is laying in bed thinking, "I wonder if the Bengals are okay at safety." Every single night until the season starts. Like that would be me. I would go to bed no matter what the day held. You know, maybe you just had your firstborn child, like you're in the hospital, and your wife's like, "Oh, I'm probably thinking about how sweet the baby smells." And no, you're laying in bed thinking about the Bengals' safety situation. No doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a number of things there. I will wrap it up, and this pick might actually have a connection to everything that we just did, definitely to what Charlie just said. I think Duke Tobin is amongst the most interesting for me this year because he has made a lot of bets. And this roster has unraveled in the last couple of years. And he has stumped, and really the move to Al Golden has been this was not the personnel department's fault. This was Lou Anarumo's fault. This was the scheme's fault. These players are still good. Miles Murphy just needs more snaps. Okay. And it was, look, we're drafting Jermaine Burton. We're keeping him around. Okay. We're doing all this. And then we have this offseason where it felt like they needed to do more to add to this team to help them win on the margins. And they didn't do it. There's still opportunities for a couple of key moves to happen where they could add and maybe have something that can help solidify them, be the team that they need at some point in this season. You think we'll talk about the trade deadline depending on where this team is? Like, again, they are always reluctant to be involved in it. How will Duke Tobin manage adding those couple of pieces that this team feels like it still needs? Something that he did pretty well in 2021 during the different portions of that run that paid off for them in the playoffs, whether small pieces or bigger pieces or something to fill in for an injury that happens to a position in August. I just think the fragile nature of where the back of this roster feels like it's at some positions, and so many of these bets that have been made on the fact that the personnel staff got this right are going to make Duke Tobin's reaction and the way people view and talk about him fascinating. It could be a year where Duke sits up and says, "I told you so." If this team is 10-2 or whatever, and they're rolling and the defense comes together, it's going to be him saying, "I told you we were right the whole time." And there's possibility for that. Or there's a possibility for everything to turn. And then the questions get a lot louder than they have been about what exactly is going on here. I just find him fascinating because he's kind of connected to all of these people on this roster right now.
Yeah. I mean, if TJ Slayton isn't sick the whole year, he'll outdo the Sheldon Rankins move. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, I forgot about Sheldon Rankins last year. There was a time where, you know, I know he was dealing with stuff, but I forgot that the guy was actually a move the Bengals made to try to get better on defense. So there's so many examples of that, Paul. That's a great call in Duke Tobin because the fan base, for how excited they were and how uplifted they were, to use one of your shows, Paul, has gone Houday Dark. In the last year or so with Duke Tobin because of these misses. When it felt like they weren't missing so much, it feels like they've missed too often. And this year is really big for him.
I always go back to that with like Demetrius Knight, which is that, the Bengals need him to start and be good. All right, that's fine. Second round pick. You would have wished they would have found one contributor even past the first round or even including their first round picks on defense over the past 4 years since Logan Wilson. So they are banking on doing multiple things right this year that they have not gotten right in 4 years. So that's we'll have a lot to talk about on the Growler.
Very curious to see the results of the state of the franchise survey in regards to where Duke Tobin's numbers year over year go and how far down trust in Duke Tobin in the front office and Zach Taylor go. So go to The Athletic, fill out your survey now, and we'll have more on the results of that next week with Jay. Jeremy, Charlie, this has just been a blast. Thank you for coming and spilling all of your wisdom. You are the most interesting people that I've seen today, and that has made me very happy. So thank you very much. I won't
Wow.
hold that McPherson pick against you either.
Hey, no, I stand by it, and I love that you say most interesting because most people would say that I'm the most weird person that they know. So interesting is a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, we shall see. Just know, I'll be watching tonight.
My guy.
in the PDJ block from 10:30 to 11. Hopefully, there will be some form of choking animal that needs to be saved, or maybe a wood carving of Caitlin Clark will show back up again, which was on last week, which I really, really enjoyed. One of
Our
the worst.
news.
Not that carving wood is easy, but maybe the worst wood carving imaginable of Caitlin Clark featured.
If you ever see
19.
anything on Fox 19 now that says, "Have you seen this?" Get the whole family in. Hey, hit pause. Get the whole family in because you could see a raccoon getting the Heimlich at any second.
That's right.
Yep.
Just know that I am watching. That's all you need to know. I have seen this because I watch every single night. All right. Thanks, boys. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. Happy 4th.